Hello, this is Professor Marie Leone, and this is your ethics class. Each week will consist of 2 activities. There will be a video in which I will be lecturing about the philosophical systems in ethics which are historically significant. Those are presented to us in our textbook titled The Elements of Moral Philosophy. And then the second component of this course will be our Monday night discussion, in which we will strive to apply those particular ethical systems to contemporary moral issues. Those are presented to us in the textbook, which is titled The Right Thing to Do. So we will begin this week with talking about some general points in the elements reading, What is Morality? And I will not be going over a short introduction to moral philosophy. That is an overview of all of the ethical systems that we will encounter during this entire semester. Many students find that helpful to read that, to give kind of an overview of the entire landscape. But this would be teaching the whole course in one discussion lecture, so I'm going to table that for now. So I will talk about what is morality in this lecture, and then some basic points about arguments. For next class, on Monday, we will be reading the articles applying ethical thinking to bioethics, and in particular eugenics, human cloning, selling organs, and a second article here on selling organs. Those we will discuss on Monday the 13th. So I'm going to also post some of the questions I will bring up about these readings on the discussion board. I don't have them posted yet. After I make this lecture, I will post some questions here. So if you're wondering what questions might be asked, I'm going to give you a little bit of a heads up in the discussion board. Of course, for the readings that are in elements, I have guided readings for each of those, and I've decided not to have a quiz. It's feeling like too much busy work, so I'm not going to have the quiz. Instead, if you have questions, you can post those on the discussion board, and I will get a sense of how well you understood the readings in the elements books also during the discussions on Mondays. As this is a small class, I think we'll be able to do that. Okay, so now to the material at hand. This is What is Morality? We talked a little bit about this in our welcome class, but I'm going to go through it again in the lecture format just so it's here for us. Let me get to my notes. Morality. As I may have mentioned before, I will tend to use the word both morality and ethics
on morality.
in synonymous fashion. Some people don't use them the same. There's a section, I don't think it's in our text, I don't think it buys us anything.
Perhaps it is somewhere in our text.
When we're talking about morality or ethics,
where we read Plato,
maybe ethics is a more systematic approach to morality,
the ring of Gyges.
And by
this is a ring
I also
that
mean
if you wear it,
organized,
invisible,
and you
by
can do
logic and
whatever
reason.
you want. Ethics
In
is
other
a
words,
branch
you
of
won't be
philosophy,
and you won't
and
get
all
caught.
philosophy
And the question
is
Plato
based upon a
raises
decision
is,
criteria,
if you wouldn't get caught,
which is reason,
what would you do?
rationality. So if you are going to make a claim
some of us
for
would
what
answer,
you should
well, I might
or should
steal,
not
I
do
might
in philosophy, in ethics,
run into the store and
that
eat all the ice cream.
argument to make that claim, what you should or should not
Maybe
do,
I'd
will have to be
do
a
something
rational
really
one.
evil if I knew I wouldn't
You'll
get
have
caught.
to give relevant reasons,
but some of us
and
answer
relevant facts as
we
to why
still
you should
wouldn't
or shouldn't
steal.
do something.
and we still wouldn't
I'm going to
cheat.
skip ahead from
Now
some
maybe
of the
we're
examples.
kidding ourselves, but it raises a very
Which they're
interesting
just trying
question.
to get our feet wet and leading
Why
us through some
Do we
different ways of doing
not steal,
ethics,
cheat, lie, etc., even
I'm
when
gonna
we
get
know
to
we
the,
won't get caught? So it isn't just about
underlying
fear of
ideas
punishment that
here.
sometimes we choose not to do certain things or to do certain things to help someone in need, perhaps. And there's
talk
something
about
else
what
going
you
on.
should do. Now,
And that
our
lies
textbook tells
at
us the
crux
first thing you should
of
do
what we call
if you're going to make an ethical
morality.
argument. There's a
going to
book
make
I like
moral claims,
very much, is to get your facts
which
straight.
is called,
and it bears
see
repeating
if I can
that
come across
what a
easily.
fact is.
Um,
Facts are,
what you do
by definition,
when no one is looking,
claims that are in the same vein
based upon
John
empirical
Wooden,
evidence.
I think that is the
Okay. What empirical evidence is
the book.
is
It's a really very good book.
something that can be measured or demonstrated to be true through
called
one of the five senses. In other words, scientific truths are
Character is what you do
verifiable
when
through
no
our
one
sense
is
perception. You make a scientific experiment, a controlled experiment, up to the
Google is not my
standards
friend
of
today.
scientific
But
decision
I
criteria.
happen to agree with
And
this
if that
idea
is met,
that it isn't what we do when we're afraid we're going to be caught
or when someone can see us,
Try again.
but it's perhaps something that we decide not to steal, even when we could get away with it. So that said, I mean, that's what I think morality is. Perhaps you're going to disagree. I'm sure lots of people do. There's a lot of, we have this whole book called Elements because there's a lot of different conceptions of what morality is. But that's a good starting point for us. Now let's talk about the difference between morality and ethics. I often use the words interchangeably, but there is arguably a subtle difference between them. I think of ethics as the study of morality. Ethics is a branch of philosophy, and philosophy is based upon a decision criteria which is reason. In other words, if you're going to make an argument for what you should or shouldn't do, what is or isn't moral, in philosophy, in ethics, you're going to make a rational argument for that case. You're going to have to provide relevant reasons for why you should do something or shouldn't do something. And as our text points out, after we get past the examples in the Elements of moral philosophy, what is morality, we get to some things that must be in place in any ethical argument. The first thing is to get one's facts straight. I think this is a good point. That's actually the easiest step in any ethical argument. You have to figure out what the actual facts are. Now, people get all confused about what facts are and what they aren't. But in the context of philosophy, facts are always empirically based, meaning that they can be verified, measured through our sense perceptions. Not necessarily your own sense perceptions. You could refer to a scientific study in sociology, psychology, physics, biology, whatever. But these are things that aren't open for personal opinion, but have to be accepted as true if the physical evidence is there. For example, something like, is the ozone depleting at a certain rate or not? There is a fact
to that matter, and you can measure it. Now, you personally might not have the scientific background to measure it. That doesn't mean it isn't a fact just because you don't have the knowledge to understand the fact. Important point about facts. But if it can be factually verified through our senses, then we call it a fact. So this is the easiest thing, to always get straight and make sure, and this is where you have to do research sometimes. You know, when does human life begin? Well, there's a value claim there, which is based on what is human life, but there's also a factual claim. When does consciousness begin? When does motion begin? When does a fetus feel pain? These kinds of things can be measured and studied, and there is a fact to the matter. Okay, so the first thing we do is we get the facts straight. Now we bring moral principles into play. And this is where our values come in. If you believe that human life has an intrinsic value, no matter what a person is, if they're a liar, if they're a good man, if they're an infant, if they're old, independent of that, if you believe that human life has value in and of itself, then that would be an example of a moral principle, of a value. Not everyone holds the same values. And this is where our ethics diverge. This is where we get disagreements about how, what is morality and what is not, what's a moral action and what's an immoral action. This is where politics get messy. This is where all of the things, all of the differences in the arguments and the debates come in, because we don't all have the same moral principles. Now, you can make a rational argument for your particular moral values, and those should be consistent and well-reasoned. And then we're going to refer back to what is good reasoning. And that will take some time to develop as we write our papers, as we debate each other in our Monday night discussions, and on our discussion board. That takes some practice. I'll try at the end of this video to go and look a little bit at good reasoning in that chapter, or I might make that a separate video. Okay, so far what we need is we have to get our facts straight. We have to figure out what our moral principles are and state them explicitly. And those are the two key factors. When we are writing or speaking our ethical theory, we should try to be impartial, meaning we should try to be open-minded, and we should try to treat everyone alike. We shouldn't have one ethical theory, one morality for, say, women, and one morality for men. One morality for people of Northern European descent, and one morality for people of, Latin descent. So ethics, doing ethics is based on what's called a principle of justice, that everyone should be treated fairly, that all human beings are created equally. Now again, there are times historically when we go through our elements readings, we will find times when not everyone was considered included in ethical theory. There was a time when both women and African Americans were not considered fully human for some of the philosophers we're going to look at. But today, in 2016, every human being is asserted to have equal access or deservedness of justice. Okay, so we try to be impartial to all people and not arbitrary in our decisions, and we try to be open-minded and to listen to other people's arguments, because maybe our ethics are wrong. We're trying to get rid of dogmatic thinking, which is believing something independent of the evidence that's there, independent of the value claims that might be more rational or more well-founded than others. Okay, so 1.6 is very important, the minimum conception of morality. At the end of this chapter, after we've gone through looking at some particular examples and kind of getting our feet wet in doing ethical theory, we come to a minimum conception. Morality is, at the very least, the effort to guide one's conduct by reason. That is, to do what there are the best reasons for doing, best reasons, while giving equal weight to the interests of each individual affected by one's actions. That is a great definition of morality and ethical theory. That is what we are going for. So I will be pressing you to be open-minded. I will be pressing you to be non-discriminatory, which means arbitrarily giving preference to some people over others. I will be pressing you to evaluate your value claims, your value principles, and decide what you really do value and why. But beyond that, I don't expect us to all come out with the same vision of morality. That'll be quite a day when that happens. Okay. I just expect you to be able to open-mindedly and fairly defend your positions. Okay, that said, that's all I have to say for Chapter 1. I'm going to go back here and take a look at the next chapter, which I believe is in the other book. The one on rationality is in the right thing to do. So I'm going to end this video and create the other video post-haste. And thank you so much for watching. Looking forward to talking with you on Monday.